What happened in sprint qualifying
for the Belgian Grand Prix?
Now, before we dive into all of the competitive action, we have some P1 Live Show shout-outs to mention. The fact that the tickets are available for certain places. Not long till our first show in the Netherlands, of course, at the end of August. And there's no tickets available for that, I'm really sorry. But there are still tickets available in Canada, America, the UK and Ireland. So grab them while you can, although there are only a few venues, I think, that are still available. So go check it and come see me and Tommy in the flesh. SQ1, the bottom five: Albon, Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Colapinto and Antonelli. That is not a bottom five I think many of us expected to be talking about, Tommy. Of course, I think we just have to fully dive into P20 first and foremost. Kimi Antonelli. Question from J8197542773. With Kimi's recent slump in performances, could he be the one Max replaces instead of George? Yeah, it's sprint quali. It's sprint. There's not a huge amount of weight on these particular sessions, if we're being honest, both from a driver and team perspective. Of course, there are points available, and Mercedes are locked in the battle with Ferrari for second in the constructors. However, I'm not going to say this is the turning point, this is the straw that broke the camel's back for Antonelli, but it is a slightly concerning run of form. The fact that he made those mistakes, damaged the floor by the looks of things, and it kind of puts the team on a little bit of back foot for the whole weekend, not just for this session. Yeah,
it's not looking good. I mean, to answer this person's question, I think Toto seems very confident now that they're going to stick with the two drivers for the season, for next season. Seems more than likely. He kind of basically said it's 100%, but I don't want to say 100% just in case, but he was kind of alluding to the fact that they are going to keep them. But yeah, can't not mention that Kimi's form really has been poor recently, and hopefully for him he can bounce back in a major qualifying session, because at least it's just the sprint.
I suppose this question doesn't necessarily say next year. It just says would Max replace Kimi rather than George? Because what we've seen as well as of recording is that Amos, which are usually a very reputable source when it comes to news, and they've mentioned around how Max will probably be staying for 2026, and then Red Bull will allow him to leave should things be bad then for the next season in 27. This gives, and I think maybe even for you, Tommy, you said not even 1%. We had that whole chat about, there definitely wouldn't be Kimi that would be replaced. Surely your percentage goes up ever so slightly when there's an extra season to either show Kimi's potential or show that Kimi doesn't have as high a ceiling as perhaps Mercedes and Toto want.
Yeah, I would say that that's a fair comment. That, of course, I was talking about 2026, but if we go into next season and Kimi's form, he hasn't picked up this kind of slump. We've seen drivers spiral in the past, and it's now about how Kimi Antonelli picks himself up from it and see if he can return to that form that got him, sprint pole in Miami or that brilliant podium in Canada. He's got it in him. He just needs to kind of showcase that again. Because he's on a really, really bad run of form, and if that continues, when we get into another season gone by, if that's still not improved, then maybe more questions are had to be asked about where he stands in comparison to George.
Next question from P1 Pitch, remember AMG Piper. Should we be worried about Hamilton? Charles is in 4th and Lewis is out in Q1, or is it just a difficult car? Literally, we've come off the back of a British Grand Prix where Hamilton, and I will put my hands up, completely chefed Charles Leclerc in terms of pace and dealing with those conditions and making the right strategic calls. For me, watching it on board, it felt more than just a Hamilton mistake. It sounded like more than a Hamilton mistake. Anthony Davidson, I think, was sort of diving into what it kind of sounded like from the gearbox and the locking at the rear. Lewis maybe doesn't feel that way, and perhaps has kind of put it on himself. But look, this is sprint quali. We've said it time and time again. Let's not say this isn't the weekend. The weekend is not done. He's at 8 points. Yes, Hamilton would have been in that top 8 had he had a uninterrupted okay session. But instead, he's going to have to write this one off, I think. Just get to the end of the sprint. It's 15 laps, sorry. So not a lot you can do from 18th on the grid. But no, I'm not worried about Hamilton as such. I think it's a bit harsh to say that, oh, he's getting old. Oh, he hasn't got it anymore.
I think it's Hamilton's high expectation and how many championships he's won, how he, went through his whole career winning in every season pretty much up until we got into 22. That means that when he has these bad moments and has slumps, and not used to seeing him spin off and crashing and making errors and things either. So it almost highlights it even more, and then he's more under pressure because for all the talk of like Hamilton, people saying, oh, Hamilton's washed, he's finished, he's too old now, this Ferrari move is a disaster. He's 16 points behind Charles Leclerc in the championship, and in terms of like percentage of points, they're one of the. It's not a million miles off. He's pretty close to say he's the new guy in the team, and this is the kind of thing that if this happens and he's still continues to kind of be off the pace of Charles Leclerc and making errors next season, say if Ferrari can finally deliver a great car and that can challenge for at the very least race wins, that's when I think it's time to worry. Until then, you're witnessing, of course, same with Charles, drivers that are trying to overdrive because they are basically trying to extract everything, and they're used to winning, they're used to being at the front. So yeah, it feels very much like everything Hamilton does at the moment is like, oh my god, and I don't think it's like as extremely bad of a season as people are making out personally.
Next question, P1 Patreon member Captain Obs3420. What happened to Hulkenberg's quali pace? He received the flop.
No context, P1.
It's as simple as that. No context. If you didn't watch the predictions, I flopped him. But look, I'm not surprised to see this because Hulkenberg has not beaten comprehensively Bortoletto the entire year. He's not. Like, Hulkenberg's had moments like this season. Silverstone was a perfect storm of him doing everything right, driving brilliantly, and it came together.
And also, when did he start?
That week in, week out.
He started last. Like,
yeah,
his qualifying.
So actually,
yeah,
this is what he wants to do.
But it is, to answer this question, nothing's changed with Hulkenberg's qualifying pace. Bortoletto is actually now 7-6 ahead of Hulkenberg in the qualifying head-to-head. So it's kind of gone under the radar, I think. But Hulkenberg's this season has been brilliant in the races where that experience showed in the last race. Other races, you look at Spain, I'm pretty sure he started like 19th or something when he finished 5th. So he's not really had these amazing, brilliant qualifying performances this year. It's the race where his experience showed. So I don't think it's all that surprising. It is just the nature of the midfield and how close it is. And 1 week, Bortoletto's teammate putting a good lap together can see the difference, and equally can swap back the next week.
Let's go to SQ2, where the 5 drivers out of this session were Lawson, Tsunoda, Russell, Alonso and Stroll. And I think this question perfectly summarises how we all felt after it. From P1 Patreon member Trish, what was that crazy SQ2? It was utterly bizarre, wasn't it? You had Piastri putting a lap that was light years ahead of everyone else down, and then having corner cut the top of, just after Eau Rouge actually, at the top of Radion. Go on, Tommy, say the line. Yeah, I know you're not going to.
Radion, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say the whole line. That would have been fun. And it all turned on its head after that, because he had to go for another lap, which is not ideal around such a long lap like Spa. And he couldn't put in a particularly good lap time. He finished 10th in SQ2, did Piastri, right on the cusp of being knocked out. You had other drivers who were going out slightly later on a fresh set of mediums, track evolution kicking in, and putting in some goated performances, it has to be said. But absolute carnage.
These are the kind of sessions that you love to see in Formula One, where it can just change so much. And there's kind of more than any other race this year, and it's a long lap, so maybe that's got something to do with it. But it seems like there's so much time to be had for just nailing a great lap, or taking a risk through a certain corner, or pinching track limits a little further and things like that. It's amazing the amount of time that people were were finding and how much it kept changing.
It's interesting because I kind of see Spa slightly differently in the fact that it's an amazing circuit, don't get me wrong, it's incredible to watch the cars around here, and I think from what we can see from the results, it matches what I think in the fact that this track rewards, more than others perhaps, just a balance in the car that some teams have, McLaren being obviously one of them, where they're able to sacrifice straight line speed to be fast in the middle sector, but they're actually not that slow in the first or last, because given one or two corners, they'll make up some time as well. So, yes, track limits is quite close, but it does feel like McLaren were just able to lean on the fact that they have an incredible car. And we've not seen a performance like this year, have we? As much as we've said McLaren are clear, it's always been close in qualifying. This was another level.
True, but to counter that with the whole car thing, you've also got a weird situation where you had 8 constructors in the top 10, and some of the gaps, like Piastri put 6/10 on his teammate, Verstappen standard or always clear, Ocon was 3/10 clear of Behrman, so it did reward people that did kind of give it that bit.
Yeah, I'm not saying the cars
extra.
drive themselves. Yeah,
no, of course
that's
not.
A fair point. That's a very fair point. Let's move to SQ3 and the top 10 were Piastri, Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Gasly, Hadjar and Bortoletto. Let's get into the first question on this segment from P1 Pitch. Remember, Has K. Does this show that nothing affects Oscar mentally and he can bounce back from anything? This is quite easily, in my opinion, one of the strongest traits that Oscar has as a driver, is his metronomic consistency. Yes, he made that small error at the top of Radion, marginal, but you just don't see mistakes from Piastri. Rarely, you just don't. You look across the whole season we've just seen, the one thing he's able to do is to show up, to perform at a very high level and go, all right, Lando, what can you do? I think this particular session was even better, where he was rapid as well and clear of everybody. And to combine the two, we see the result of him just being light years ahead of everybody else. And this will be such a big confidence booster for Oscar, who's of course off the back of Lando winning the last 2 races. Of course, Oscar was in another universe, would have easily won the British Grand Prix had safety cars not come out and things like that. But for Norris, we know that he's a lightning fast driver, but can make mistakes and can sometimes get in his own head. This is such an important session, in my opinion, for Oscar to reclaim a bit of that. Yeah, I've still got this, mate. Don't you worry. I'll still be here. And to turn up with only 1 practice session to be this far clear was remarkable.
It's an unbelievable lap, and I think it needs to be applauded what Oscar's done with that lap, because years gone by, Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen putting 6/10 on their teammate and producing a lap like that would be applauded. And yes, the McLaren is very good, and I think we'll get onto this, but I think Lando is quite fortunate that the car is that good that he could still slot into P2 by being 6/10 off, which is a massive margin. To do that when you've had the slight error in, and by error, you're a millimeter of your wheel was off Radion, and you ended up getting your lap time deleted. But maybe you look at Norris's time, maybe he's thought about that and left some time on the table thinking it's a 1-lap qualifying. Of course it was as well with the way it turned out. And for Piastri to just deliver a lap that good with 1 chance is like a big statement, kind of, I'm not going to let Lando get the momentum here.
Off the back of literally the last session where he did track limits.
Yeah,
and to put on a different tyre where the grip levels are different, and to nail a lap like that, that's got to be one of the quality laps of the season by quite some margin. Fair play to Oscar Piastri. For you to remember, Longo 1996. Could Max potentially win the sprint race and the Grand Prix? No. Maybe tomorrow. No, sorry, Sunday. I think Sunday, put some changeable conditions in there. The thing is, right, we could see, because of course you can change your car after the sprint race. So Will we see a Max Verstappen Red Bull car that has a lot more downforce on it when we go into qualifying for the main race and then the main race itself? Because of the weather looks different for Sunday. I haven't checked as of right now but rain is in the air, and rain was in the air when I last looked. So that'll be quite fascinating to see where Max's pace will be if he has to load on the downforce into qualifying, that main qualifying. But I don't think you can discount him for that. I think they've definitely had their medicine after the British Grand Prix of risking it for the chocolate biscuit and it not working. I think at Spa, if there's rain on the radar that says 60-70% chance of rain, you prepare for rain. So Max can win that one. I don't think he wins the sprint by any stretch. I think Oscar Piastri will walk it tomorrow.
I think it all relies on the rain, and if it doesn't rain, I think Max does have a great chance, and maybe it's complete delusion, but he's starting second at Spa. He's got absolutely nothing to lose, while Oscar Piastri has everything to lose because he's in that championship battle with Max. And Max will no doubt be thinking about that run up Eau Rouge and Radion and that long straight with his how quick he's been through that first sector, and think, if I get ahead, then if it's a dry race, it doesn't matter that McLaren are miles clear in the middle sector. You can't pass in the middle sector. So I think
they'll be right on. If Max does get through, in my opinion, which absolutely could happen on lap 1, Slipstream is still a thing, DRS is still a thing, and Oscar can negate the fact that he's not as quick as Max on the straights, because he'll be right up his chuff. I wish I'd used a better phrase.
True, and I guess we have seen in the past, and this is something that Christian Horner mentioned in Austria, McLaren for some reason just don't have dirty air. Like their car, like Oscar in Lando in Austria, was up behind Lando Norris for the entire race, so close, and while everyone else would have gone, there's too much dirty air, we need to back off for 2 seconds, he spent basically like the entire race battling. So they do have that advantage, and maybe it is delusion, but I do think Max will go for it, and if he takes the lead, you never know in this short sprint. He's got an opportunity.
Yeah. Blink and you miss
weirdly, it's another situation of Silverstone, of an insane thing to say because it's Max Verstappen, but he'll be praying it's dry.
That could be fun to watch. Next question, P1 Patreon member CC Hollister. Haas cooking. Where's that Haas pace come from? Well, they finally figured out qualifying, at least for today. So they could easily challenge the McLarens by how good they've been in races so far this year. But yeah, it's a case of, it was cool to chat to Ollie Behrman and Esteban a little bit as well when we were at Goodwood. And it just sounded like they had limitations in the car that they weren't able to extract that pure performance on a Saturday and on qualifying days. But maybe the fact that there was only one practice session has helped them. They've gone for a really low downforce setup. They were lightning quick in that first sector. I think they were purple, if anything. So they went for that kind of setup on the car, and it's worked really well for them. So I'm really happy to see them up there, because I reckon they could stay there as well tomorrow.
They can. This has been Haas's problem, is that they qualify incredibly poorly and then make their way up during the races. But if they can qualify well, the midfield is going to be incredibly close. I think the sprint is going to be really exciting. I wish there were more than 15 laps, to be honest. Verstappen's going to try everything at the front with the McLarens. We'll see what Charles can do. And then you look at the rest behind them. Of course, Russell's out the mix, so's Hamilton, Antonelli, who are in quick cars, and you're going to have the best of the rest and good results. You're going to have that being fought by like Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Gasly, Hadjar, Bortoletto. So yeah, it's going to be a really good one. Can't wait.
One of those drivers, Carlos Sainz, I think we have to mention him, who has had a nice qualifying. Finally, something has come together where Carlos, his car's not blowing up, and P6, his teammate, down in 16th. So that's annoying from my biggest good surprise shouts and arguments.
Welcome to
really
picking a team where one of them is the GOAT and
it's
the
worth
other
the
is
2
terrible.
points if it comes in, but usually it doesn't come in. But no, a brilliant job from Carlos, and I hope he can score some solid points tomorrow.
Yeah, me too, because the year he's had and the points tally he's got does not reflect what he's been doing in that car. He's been incredibly unlucky. He has looked, on pace with Albon. It's not like Albon has like absolutely cooked him in every session, been miles ahead. Sainz has just had some poor luck, and that's not to take anything away from Albon. He's had an amazing season and been mightily impressive, but I do think Sainz has been incredibly unlucky. So be nice for him to get some points on the board and be rewarded, because we know he's a quick driver.
Certainly is. Question from people on pitch. Remember, Dan, should sprint races be held at shorter tracks so we don't have stupid sessions like SQ3? It wasn't that stupid. We went like this is like 2025 brains in terms of our attention spans. The fact we couldn't sit there for 3.5 minutes waiting for a car to come out the track. Let's see how Spa delivers this weekend. I don't think we're going to judge it on the fact that we had to wait 3.5 minutes to go out for SQ3. But I think I am more of the opinion of the Austrias of this world, the Brazils. I think that it leans better for sprint races to be that. I don't know if it's because in my brain I'm like, well, there's more laps. There's more laps.
It feels more frantic. It feels more frantic
just,
when they're like flying around and they're doing
and they have more
short
chance
laps,
to
and there's a
maybe
lot.
do a random pit stop, or I don't know. There's something that definitely works in my head to do with sprint races. I just can't exactly pinpoint why it is.
Yeah, I agree. Spa just to me doesn't feel like a sprint track, but of course we'll all be loving it, because the one thing that we always say about sprints and when we have a boring one is the fact that it's just the first part of the Grand Prix without any of the interesting strategy and a tyre stop or someone doing something different. So if we did get a sprinkling of rain halfway through, we'd all be loving it at Spa, because then we'd see, I think it was that one, I want to say Austria 23, where it rained halfway through the sprint, and Hulkenberg in a Haas got 5th or something, and it was really exciting. So something like that again would be cool. But it does seem a bit silly to basically have that time where we're all just sat around waiting for the cars to go out. But on the flip side, I've always been advocating for one lap qualifying in SQ3 to make it a bit different anyway, and that's basically what we got.
Exactly. One lap on different tyres to what they've been running in SQ1 and SQ2, and we got a pretty chaotic grid where the top 10 was separated by 1.6 seconds, which is unheard of in 2025 Formula 1. So there you go. That is it. God, we talked a long time, considering it's literally a sprint. We didn't even reflect on FP1, because why would we? Tommy, what are your final thoughts, sir?
My final thoughts are I'll be checking the weather forecast every second tomorrow to see what it's going to be, but I think that's going to be the most intriguing thing, of going into a sprint where there'll be people that want to score big points, and it gives a chance for the midfielders, of course, with a lot of those top teams being out of it, but also there's a qualifying session to come up as well, so they can't be too naughty, but they're Formula 1 drivers and they'll absolutely go for it, no doubt. Right, that is it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you very soon. We'll be live on Twitch and YouTube, as always, for every competitive session. So we will see you there if you want to come join us for our watch-along. And that is it. See you soon. Lots of love. Get your P1 live show tickets. And goodbye. Goodbye.